Good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to see you today. Thank you so much for being here. It's a beautiful day in Sarasota, and if you're watching this on one of our online platforms, we appreciate you tuning in today. You honor us when you tune in to see what's happening. As a matter of fact, hundreds are, so it's a lot of group that's our electronic community that are tuning in today. But we're glad that you're here. We hope you sense God's presence today in your life as we talk about margins. Margins. This is not new to me. It's one of the things that I've been living with my entire life, but I have taught this series in a different way. This is now the third time, and out of all the teachings I've done, I've had more people say, when are you going to do that again? And it's been like 12 years.
12 years.
So it's been a long time since we've looked at margins, but I think it's important. And today we're talking about, ready, probably your least important, least favorite, financial margins. Oh boy, financial margins. I had somebody after the service today, after 9 o'clock, they said, as they walked out, she said, I want you to know that's the most loving sermon I've ever heard on money. And I thought it was very cute, and I thank you for it. But what is margin? Margin's the extra. What is it?
The extra. It's the reserves. It's the sacred space we give our life and our soul to accommodate for God, to accommodate for relationships that matter, to accommodate for our finances, as we'll see next week, for our morality, for our professional development. Because we live in a world today that too often sort of pushes us to the boundaries, to the extreme, to the edges of our margins. And there are problems in our life if we do not create margins. Imagine being on a highway and your tire blows out and there's no margin of room on the shoulder. You're in a pickle there. But when life gets busy, here's what happens. If we don't have space for margin, the urgent will push out the important, and you have to know the difference when we're talking about margins.
Yeah, and all of us have limits. I mean, we have limits with our time. We have limits with our emotions, our finances. And margins, though, can be seen in our lives when we have time to relax, emotional reserve, money in the bank, lines morally that keep us on track. Throughout the Bible, we can go through and see Jesus' followers needed margins. Why? Because relationships are built in the margins. Friendships are developed in the margins. Time with God occurs in the margins. In margin, the most important things in life happen. I mean, what is the margin? If you're running and you say, okay, now I'm going to kick it into super speed. You ever had that as a kid? You're running and you have the burst of speed that you've been saving. That's your margin. When you're running full speed and you can't go any faster, you have no margin.
That's right.
And some of you live your lives as if you're running full speed all day, every day, and you don't have margin. And you wonder why your relationships are lacking or your time with God is lacking. Why your life is suffering is because you have less margin than you should. When people begin to lose margin in life, God is squeezed out, and we lose control of our lives. But we all have limits.
That's right.
I mean, every one of us. I mean, our limits are based on what culture pushes us to, or what we allow God to lead us to.
That's right.
So relationships built in the margins.
That's right. That was week one. We started off the series by talking about how relationships, all of the most authentic relationships we have, are built in the grace and the space of margin we give ourselves. That's relationships with others, our family members, our spouse, even God. Week two, last week, if you weren't here, we talked about time and schedule. I called it a theology of trust. It's this idea that our priority will determine our capacity. You will make time for the things you find important in your life. And today we get to talk about financial margins. Now, I got to say, when I was a professor for a long time in Dallas, I taught philosophy and humanities. We'd always touch on different aspects of ideologies, whether we're talking about religious ideology or financial, economic practices. And people, even my students, would get a little bit antsy when I would challenge their belief in God, because as a professor, that's my job. I'm not there to tell you what I believe. I'm there to help you understand what you believe. And when I would challenge their notions of God, they would get a little upset. They'd push back. But boy, when you challenge their notions of money, you talk about people got bent out of shape, like students walking out of class. That's my money. I earned it. I made it. I do what I want with it. And that's the cultural appropriation of money, but that's not God's understanding of it. And so today it's going to be somewhat contentious. We're going to play good cop, bad cop. He's going to be the good cop. I'm going to be the theological cop, right? I'm going to bring in some theological perspective that gives us a healthier understanding of what we're called to do with the finances that we have. And that leads to point number one, if you're taking notes. All of us are living on a percentage of our income. What is that? What do you mean by that?
Most of us, we're living on a percentage, but we don't know what that percentage is. Some are living at 80% income. You're spending 80% of what you make. Some are spending 90% of what you make. There are some of you who are spending 100% of everything you make. And then there's still others who are spending, with the help of credit card, 110% of what you make. And it's not healthy. But all of us are living on some percentage of our income. And here's what is common. Man, I need a little more money. So I really need a raise. So I want to go to my employer and ask for a raise because I've spent myself into a circumstance to where I need more money. And they should give you a raise because of your lack of stewardship. So, but we'd say if I had a little more income, I'd be okay. If I made a little more, I'd want to buy this particular couch that I can't afford, but maybe I'll buy it anyway. So, but let's buy it. I mean, the couch may be more than you can afford. Maybe the house is more than you can afford. But listen carefully. We make so much more money in our country compared to other countries. We truly are a wealthy country. So sometimes it's about perspective. And some people make a decent living today. If you knew 20 years ago that you make what you make today, you'd be saying, oh my goodness, if I could make that amount, I'd be wealthy, I'd be in great shape. As a matter of fact, and then you look around and you see what somebody else makes, you go, boy, if I made what you made, I'd just throw a whole block party. Invite everybody. If I made what you made, I'd have a full banquet here at the church with filet mignon and surf and turf, all the good things if I made what you made. Isn't it easy to spend someone else's money? Mm-hmm. I know it's true if you have a business credit card. I know it's true if you're the government. It's easy to spend someone else's money. It's always easier to do that, but when it's yours, it's a little more tricky. So if we made today, if we could envision 20 years ago that making what we're making today, we'd have a big smile on our face. But there's a problem. Financial stress. Mm-hmm. We make more, yet we still have financial stress. Today, what I want you to hear us talk about really is not so much money as your stress. We want you to help you find ways to reduce the stress in your life because it's not healthy for you. Right. So all of us are living on a percentage of our income. Add some more to it.
Yeah, let me challenge our cultural mindset some. God's invitation to us as individual people, followers of Christ, it's not an invitation to ascend into excess, to accumulation. It is to abide in enough. Scripture never one time glorifies the accumulation of wealth. It does not. Jesus talks about this idea of give us this day our daily bread. He wasn't just trying to teach us how to pray. He was trying to teach us how to trust God. Because I believe that Jesus saw that there was a spiritual problem beneath the financial stress that isn't rooted in scarcity. It's rooted in misplaced security. Who do you really trust in your life? That bank account or the God of the cosmos? See, we don't suffer because God hasn't provided. We suffer because we confuse provision with possession. Listen to what Christ says in Matthew 6. He says, wherever your treasure is, there will your heart be also. He wasn't warning us against money itself. He was exposing this principle for us today. Hold on. You need to write this down. It's not in your notes. Our hearts grow small when our wallets become sacred. Your heart will grow small when your wallet becomes sacred. I didn't say if your wallet grows bigger. I said it's when it becomes sacred to you. It's not money that corrupts us. It's when we start loving it more than the God who provides it. You see, margin is a form of faithfulness. It's that I trust that I have enough because enough is holy. This is the idea, this this idea of comparison, right? We compare ourselves. My grandparents used to say, keeping up with the Joneses. But now what we do is we compare ourselves upwards instead of downwards. Our sense of need expands with every neighbor's Amazon delivery. In Exodus, God tells the children of Israel this. He says, the manna is going to come from heaven. It's going to give you provision, not possession. It's not yours to possess, to accumulate, to hoard. It's yours good for one day. And here's the thing. If you take more than enough, it's going to rot. And what is that parable about the margin about? What we cling to for control will often decay before we can enjoy it. How many guys get the upgraded iPhone every year when it comes out, right? You can't even have time. I just got the 17. Well, I just had the 16. I had the 14. That's the idea here, is that enough is holy. Enough is holy.
No.
And that leads to point number 2 if you're taking notes. Lack of financial margin leads to tension.
Yeah, and I'd like to talk about the tension in your life, because sometimes we have it. What does the tension look like? Well, I make this much money, but I spend this much money. It's almost the same, and I feel stressed. There's a teaching at Financial Peace University. You may have heard of it. Dave Ramsey was the guy that promoted that, still promotes it. And he's all about, don't spend more than you earn type. It's really common sense approach. But the point is that we reduce some of this tension in our life. But here's what happens. We make this amount of money, we spend to it. And if our income drops, we're in trouble. If the economy drops, we're in trouble. In 2008, those of us who lived here during 2008, the world changed for us. I mean, a lot of construction-based industry. I know guys that, lost companies, they lost employees. Everything changed. And if you're on commission during that time, you don't have the resource coming in. When we have no margin, we're in trouble. The goal is margin. We need some space between our income and spending. Why? Because you need a little bit of extra. In marriage counseling, one of the things we hear with couples, there's a stress over money. And what will make your wife feel better, typically a young couple, is if you simply, Dave Ramsey would say, if you put $1,000 in the bank and say, this is a savings account, we never had one before, now we got $1,000, it makes them feel more secure because they have a little bit of margin. And and then later it says, well, you should have 3 months of your living expenses. That should be socked away somewhere. You save it. Why? Because it gives you some margin. Margin is the extra. Margin is where your stress level comes down. I would love to say, folks, you bring out your paychecks, or your checkbooks or your credit cards, and stop by the ATM and swipe it and give us all your money today. Then you don't have to worry about it. We'll take care of it for you. We're just trying to help you. But one thing's at Suncoast, we've never passed the offering plates here. Not because we don't think money's important, but we don't think it's the number one thing. Or even today, it's not about the money, it's about the margin. We think that everyone should have a certain amount of margin in their life because it'll help you be a less stressed, better individual. So, people say, but I don't make enough money. If I had, maybe I need a better job. I need a second job. Simply increasing your income is not going to solve the spending problem.
That's right.
And why do you have a spending problem? Because culture pushes us into this possession mentality.
Absolutely.
Just possess and possess and possess, and he who has the most possessions wins, which is not true. What's really sad is when you make a certain amount of money and you spend the same amount of money. Let's say let's pick a number, $300,000 a year. That's a nice income for most people, $300,000. Make $300,000 a year, but you spend $300,000 a year, and your sister, whom you love dearly, her husband, gets sick and he passes away, and she has 2 kids, and she comes to you and says, I hate to bother you, but I don't know if I'm going to make my electric payment this month. I'm just struggling. And you say, oh, sis, I know your husband died. I know you have those 2 kids, and I really like to help you, but I spent all my money on me. I have a big house and a nice boat and nice cars, and I have all the things I wanted, and I want all of them for you, but I can't buy them for you. Are you kidding? I can barely afford them for myself. There's no margin in the life. Even for people who come to Suncoast who need financial help. We help a lot of people financially, but what we want to know is your family helped you first. Your first stop should be your family.
Yep.
Say, hey, look, mom, dad, aunt, uncle, this is the first stop. Is there something, I need some help? And for a short time, they can help you. But I tell you, we give away a lot of cars, we change a lot of oil, wash a lot of cars, and we pay a lot of electric bills for people. Why? Because we have to? No, but because the society dictates some need and we try to help people. And here's the thing. We want you to know every time we give away something, if you put any money in the box or you give anything, you're a part of that giving back in some measure. But I want you to live a life that has less stress, more love, more value, more joy, and less stress.
That's right. For me, when I look at financial tension, it's not an economic issue for me. It's a spiritual one. Jesus' vision for his followers is this one word in Hebrew, shalom, peace. And peace is not about the abundance of stuff. It is about the alignment of my soul. The tension we feel when our spending outpaces our income is a symptom that our values have drifted faster than my gratitude. What do I mean by that? This is what I mean. Somewhere along the way in my life, what I value most begins to sprint ahead of what I'm most thankful for. We stop celebrating what we already have and we start chasing the things that we just simply want. Gratitude is that pace that slows my soul down. Greed and accumulation speed it up. And the faster I try to run, the thinner my peace is. And here's the thing. When I begin to value stuff over the gratitude for what I have, this is what happens in my soul. Joy becomes an idea that I feel I can purchase, not something that I practice. But here's the truth. Jesus never condemns wealth. He never does. He cautions against worshiping it. He says this, you cannot worship both God and mammon. What does that mean in modern language? You cannot chase peace and pressure at the same time. Mammon is not this monster under my bed. It's a mindset that I need more, 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 more. It's the belief that my worth, my self-worth is determined by how much I earn, by how much I can prove myself, by how much I put on display on my social media for everyone to see how successful I am. And when my self-worth gets grounded in that type of faith, tension becomes my theology. God never leads me into having margin because he's stingy. He leads me there because I cannot live in peace when I'm overextended. When I create margin in my life, trust in God starts to breathe again. And here's the truth. Most of us don't live paycheck to paycheck. Many of us live paycheck to panic. And why is that? Because we want to pray for peace, but we often just plan for pressure. Joy is not something you purchase. It's something you have to practice. Like I said earlier, having enough is a holy, sacred thing. And that leads to point number 3 if you're taking notes. We have let our lifestyle reduce the margin in our lives. You see, here's the truth. The tension between God's economy and the culture's economy, let me be honest, it's not about money. I don't care if you got $1 million, $5 million in the bank, or $10 in the bank. It's not about money. It's about meaning and purpose. Because in God's kingdom, wealth flows outwardly into generosity. In the culture, wealth circulates back inwardly into more consumption. You already got a good car, a new car. Oh, I need a new one. I need this one. This is the new model. But this is only 3 years old. I need it. Consumption. And when you do that, you have mistaken Jesus' promise for abundant life with the culture's promise for abundant lifestyle. But here's the truth about God's kingdom. You ready? It's not about having more. It's about needing less. When Jesus says you can't serve God and mammon, what he's saying is you don't have two bosses you report to. He's saying there are two worldviews that you think about. One worldview says, I'm enough now because I make enough or because I've accumulated enough. Man, if my spouse was only valued by what she earned, how horrible would that relationship be? If she only valued me by what I provided, that's my self-worth. But in God's kingdom, this is what God says. You have always already been enough because you have always already been loved. This is the thing. God is not wanting to punish us for overspending or living beyond our means. That's just a natural consequence of misalignment in our finances. You overspend, it's going to cost you. But here's the thing. Every time I consume without any conscience whatsoever, I am training my heart to believe this, that God's grace is not really sufficient. Worldly gain is. And hear me clearly and correctly. God's goal is not to guilt you over spending. It is to create freedom in simplicity. We don't need more income. We need less idols in our life. Margin, as Dr. Bachman and I are talking about today, is not about creating restriction for you. You know what it's about? It's about creating restoration of your soul. It's the space where your wallet finally reflects who you should worship, and that's the truth.
Yeah, and I mean, you can talk about ancient Israel and what they did in their economy. They used to give 20% of their income to take care of the poor in the temple. 10% for the poor, 10% for the temple, 20%. Today, our government supposedly does a lot of that for us, but it doesn't take away our responsibility to help those in need. So if someone's in need, I want to be sure I have the resource to be able to help them. And what I've discovered in my life, the more generous I am, the more generous I become. Does that make sense? I don't pray, God bless me. I say, God, if you're going to bless me that I may bless others. I have plenty. And anything more is a resource that's used to help other people. And I think that's important. Who's in charge of the economy? Is it Donald Trump? Is it Jerome Powell? Is it the Federal Reserve? Is it the government? And there may be a lot of answers to that. But I think my answer would be the only person that's really in charge of my margin in my life is my connection with God and how that works out. The economy, God's economy, is when you and I find a place where we're not stressed out, we're not panicked. It's okay to work, it's okay to make resources, it's okay to have money, but it's not okay if it's all about you. There needs to be a heart of generosity behind there.
Yes.
That's one of the things, the reason we don't pass the offering plate here. Why don't we pass the offering plate when every church does? Because I watch enough television evangelists where all they're after is your money. We want your money, we want your money. I remember one guy met me in the Grand Hall one day. He said, I went to another church in town, and he said, if I could show you my ankle, it's got the pastor's grip marks on my ankle. We're shaking me upside down to get the last pennies out of my pocket. And I said, well, that's not what we want to be. Now, does it take money for us to exist? It does. But is that our priority? Our priority is showing the love of God to our community in a variety of ways. And that's important. For us to say today, you need to give more money to the church. If that's what you hear, you're not hearing us very well. But I want you to hear me. I would love for you to give more money to the church. Fair enough. There's lots of places. And if you got resource, give it. But we are not guilt givers.
No.
We think it's much better to say, how are you doing with the margin in your life? Are you living at 100%? If so, you need to have a conversation with your significant other and think about ways that we can budget this. No one likes the word budget. Ways that we can adjust this to where there's a little bit of money at the end of the month. Now, we did priority giving. What does that mean? When Becky and I were young adults, we got married just as kids practically, almost 50 years ago. We had this conversation. We would always be tithers. We call it tithing in church. It means 10% of your income. We've always been giving 10%. But what we do is not wait until the end of the month and give it. When we got a paycheck, the first check that was written every month was written to the church for 10% of whatever our checks were. It wasn't the second check. It wasn't the gift. It wasn't the leftovers. It was a priority first thing. We did not make any money. I mean, I remember making $2.50 an hour. I remember coming out of college, and we were married in college, and coming home and coming back to Bradenton to where we had, I had about a $4,000 or $5,000 college bill that needed to be paid. I didn't have a lot of scholarships. I didn't have a wealthy family. It's the school of hard knocks where you go through and you earn your way. But they said, we'd love for you to come back in the fall after you're married if you can pay your bill. But believe it or not, I worked in a cabinet shop. She worked at her family business, and we saved and we saved. We tithed and we tithed. We saved and we saved. And over the course of that summer, remember that July, I sent the last check to the university. Everything was paid in full. We had enough margin in our lives. We didn't make very much money, but we always had a lot of margin. Why? Because we control what we spend.
That's right.
We don't pay interest. I don't think I've ever paid a credit card interest payment. Why? As a matter of fact, for me personally, I only had a car payment one time in my life. Usually we just buy them, pay cash, and just don't worry about it. And you say, well, how can you buy them and pay cash? You must have a lot of cash. No, we buy old cars, old beat-up cars, because that's where we lived. But I do remember going back to school, and in that process, in that journey, when I got back to college, I'd been paying, if it's $211 worth of income for the week, your tithe would be what? $21.10.
That's right.
Not $21, $21.10. And there was a day in my life where God moved me out of the 10% bracket and said, you will no longer write a check for $21.10. My wife was always more generous than me. She was. She's not. Fair enough? She was. God has grown my heart to where I want to become a generous person. Now she's going, wow, you did what? You did this? And it's okay. And here's the thing. She doesn't matter what we give as long as we're faithful. And we want to be people who honor God with our life and control our spending and make enough income. Why? Not so that we can do things, although we do like those, but so we can always be family members who can give back to the family who need it and church members who need it. We want to be part of that community that's sharing, and we think margin is a secret to that. So that's an important thing in our life. So we choose to put God first. And then there was a day God said, it's not about $21.10. It's about I own everything in your life. And then all of a sudden the check started being rounded up to $25, $30, $50. And then later we made more, and it was $100. And it's not about the money. I want you to know it's not about money. It's about margin. And it's about stress and tension and peace.
That's it.
And we just want to give you some principles. We're not going to monitor you and come around and see what you do, but we are going to suggest that you monitor your budget, monitor your income and expenses, and make sure you don't overspend. Make sure you don't put your relationships and your family in such a tight box because it's not healthy for you. We think that's important.
That's right. So let's pray, Suncoast. Let's go to God and ask Him for help in this area of our life. Awesome God, as we sit in this moment to be challenged with a very, very important area of all of our life, the financial management of the resources that you have blessed us with. God, let us come to see gratitude and thankfulness as our main currency. And generosity becomes our joy. And God, remind us that this type of peace, this type of joy, this type of gratitude is not something we purchase. It's not the new car, the new house, or the new phone, or the new clothes that we get. God, it's something we practice. God, give us the heart to see that what we have in this moment is enough. And that space of having enough is holy. That's the margin you call us to, God. Not out of restriction, but out of restoration of our soul, of our peace. God, give us the strength to live that way today, to trust you with everything in our life, including our finances. It's in the strong name of Christ we pray. Amen.
Would you stand, please? I want to tell you a story in closing. As I do remind you, there are going to be two more teachings on margins. One is going to be moral margins. Ooh. What does that mean? How do you have enough margin morally? And secondly, professional margin. How do you have enough margin on your job and in your work? So a few things we'll talk about over the next few weeks. But I'll tell you a story in closing that sums this up. Years ago when my children were young, we take family vacation. We'd be in a minivan typically. We're traveling up the I-75, which is the way to get out of Florida. And we'd pull over at a rest area somewhere along the way to get gas. And Stacy, who is now in her 40s, she's the middle kid, and she was about 5 years old. That happened to all of them. The same story happened to all, but I'm going to tell it about Stacy. And we pull off, and they go in and they can get one treat. Usually it's a pack of gum. And they get a pack of gum. Of course, they come back and their kids are, I get one treat. How about a bag of something this big? No, just a pack of gum. Then they say, there's little packs of gum. What about a big pack of gum? Okay, well, we let you have a big pack of gum. We get in the car. We're traveling up the interstate. And all of a sudden, one of them has this cinnamon-flavored gum. And I'm smelling it. And I go, wow, that big red smells good. And Dad said, who got the big red? And Stacy said, I did. I got it. I said, oh, that's wonderful. Can I have a piece? I only have a few pieces. I'm 5 years old. I only have a few pieces. My favorite gum. I only have a few. And all of a sudden, this is when having a sister comes in handy. The older sister pulls, shut up, pull back here. Hey, you know what you're doing? Dad is the one who buys the gum. And if you ever want to get any more gum, you better give him some gum. I'm older. I've already learned this lesson. I'm going to pass it on to you. Offer him the gum. So they're having this conversation. Okay, Dad, here's some gum. Thank you very much, sweetie. And I take the gum, and I go, there'll be lots of gum for you guys as we go along. But here's what's amazing. If you and I could just learn to open our hearts to the one who's given us everything that we have and be generous back to him, he's not trying to take all your gum. He's just simply trying to help you know where it came from, because there's going to be another stop down the road, and he's going to provide more and more and more. I'm here to remind you, there's a God of infinite grace who loves you today. He has all the resources in the world. But what he wants most of all is your heart. He loves you today. So do we. God bless you. Thanks for coming.